Not too long ago, I made a video called The Great Videogame Adaptations, that nobody watched, where I talk about movies, anime, manga, and comics that paid respects to their source material by being, well, a great videogame adaptation. But there was one adaptation that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't because A. I haven't watched it myself, and B. because nobody mentioned it when I was doing research. The Yakuza or Like a Dragon live-action movie by Takashi Miike. So the other day my roommate Isaiah and I decided to get drunk and we watched it for shits and giggles. So this begs the questions.
Is it a good movie? Is it a great adaptation? Is it even worth your time?
The answer is yes and no.
I think the best way to describe this movie is by saying, this is the video game movie of all time. It's not terrible, but it's also not fantastic. Like, yeah, I know you can say that about many video game adaptations, but this movie is like a roller coaster that goes from another mess to peak in just a matter of seconds. As you could expect, Like a Dragon follows the story of the original Yakuza game, but it also doesn't. This movie is like 5 different stories crammed into one film, and I shit you not, half of them feel like Substories. Let's explore each of them individually. First, you have Kiryu and Haruka, and it honestly starts very solid. This story kicks off with an awesome fight sequence so Kiryu can buy some dog food. We really like this because that's something that genuinely can happen to anyone who plays Yakuza. In general, something that we think the movie does well is by kicking off its plot with Kiryu and Haruka having already met. It throws us right into the main conflict, leaving a ton of time to develop the main plot and to explain everything that happened before through dialogue. Unfortunately, the movie never does any of that, because first, the movie wastes so much time on shit that adds nothing to the plot, but I'll get to that later. And second, because Kiryu and Haruka are barely in the movie, and they're so damn boring in this story. Aside from some cool action scenes with Kiryu here and there, that's all he does. He and Haruka just go around talking to people and having some corny existential scenes until Date shows up saying, "Kiryu, Nishiki is waiting for you at the Millennium Tower. You're the only one that can defeat him." And speaking of that, the final arc of the story is so good and so bad at the same time. Good because yes, the action scenes are great, but bad because unlike the actual story, it has no emotional weight at all. I know this was also an issue in the original release of Yakuza, since it had no cutscenes to explain Nishiki's personality change. But for example, Nishiki only appears twice in the whole movie. The first when he is introduced, and the second where he's like, "Oh, I'll climb up the ranks and become the strongest in the Tojo clan." Then he fights Kiryu, loses, and that's it. There's no emotional sacrifice. Actually, it's even worse, cause in the last scene, Yumi shows up out of nowhere and triggers the bomb's countdown, but Kiryu shows no feelings towards her. Haruka barely seems to care about her mother, and the most unintentionally funny thing about this is, her death means nothing because Jingu is killed a few seconds before the bomb blows up. And not just that, she didn't have to die at all. She could have easily walked away from the bomb, and it's so weird because Kazama actually survives in this story. So if they took some creative liberties with some characters, why did they still decide to give Yumi a dumbest death? It's so weird. In fact, all of Kiryu's story is weird. It is super rushed, it's all over the place, and aside from the fighting scenes, it's too damn boring.
Then there's what we call the film Substories, 3 of them in total. First off, there's the robbers, and these guys are great because they're literally just doing a Manzai stand-up routine for the entire movie. Every time they're on screen, they got a laugh out of us, and even if they barely matter to the overall narrative, they're used in a really clever way to introduce Date, the police department, and the plotline of the Tojo clan's missing money. You see, they're trying to rob a bank, right? But because the 10 billion yen disappeared, there's nothing left for them to steal. And after that, you're left with them getting up to shenanigans as they try to salvage their hostage situation, and they're just the best. Story relevant or not, they're so damn entertaining that we welcomed their inclusion and got excited every time they made an appearance. They perfectly embody just how silly and absurd Yakuza Substories can get, which is great in our books. Then there's the plot of this Korean hitman dude, and it's a bunch of nothing. Just like with Kiryu, the guy spends almost the entirety of his screen time going place to place and having boring conversations. His main goal is to kill Jingu, and well, he certainly does it. It's really weird of them to change how Jingu died, since it not only removes any of the sympathy and agency Nishiki desperately needed, but it makes Yumi's death even more stupid, because her blowing herself up is now completely pointless. I just recently beat Kiwami 2, and let me tell ya, I'm convinced the writers of the second game were behind this script given the random addition of these Korean characters. But then again, the Koreans aren't portrayed as universally evil in this story like they are in 2, so maybe not. Seriously though, they try way too hard to make this guy look cool. He's completely silent for half the runtime as the movie builds up to the reveal of his identity, and with how much focus we got, we swore he must have been Shinji or someone else integral to the plot of 1, but no! He's just a glorified OC! It feels like they really wanted to make the most of the actor Gong Yu, and I can't blame them. I loved him in Train to Busan and Squid Game, but this is far from his best work, and all the scenes hyping him up should have been used on Kiryu! You know, the protagonist? Also, fun fact, the guy who plays Jingu in this movie? That's Toshihiro Nagoshi, the creator of the Yakuza series himself. Just thought we'd mention that, since it's pretty neat.
Next, there's a plot of these two young lovers and they suck! They really fucking suck, and they matter nothing in the story. We thought for a second these two were this couple from the original game. But no! They all interact with Kiryu once early in the story, and that's literally it. And their plot is so damn boring. The girlfriend convinces her boyfriend to become robbers. They rob a few stores, the Yakuza show up, she kills a guy, she gets shot, and then she dies. And that's it! These scenes were so dragged out and so damn boring. We don't know what they were trying to achieve with them. Were they supposed to add a romantic tragedy to the story? If so, then why didn't they use that time to develop Kiryu's relationship with Nishiki and Yumi? Why waste all of that on these random unlikable idiots? All of their scenes suck, and they're the worst part of the movie. Every time they show up, we will be like... But then, we will get to the Majima scenes. This is peak! This is the moment where the Yakuza movie becomes a masterpiece. Every single scene, every single line of dialogue is pure gold. We don't want to sound like Majima slurpers.
I do. What?
But Majima single-handedly carries the entire movie. It is no overreaction when I say that he is the best part in the entire story. First, you have the guy playing Majima. He was perfectly cast, like, you can tell this dude was born to play Majima, and that shouldn't be a surprise because his name is also Goro. Goro Kishitani. He was perfect for Majima. He flawlessly captured the essence of the character, and you can tell how much fun he had while doing this role. From his actions, his deliveries, his jokes... I don't know how I can describe how good Majima is without spoiling the surprises, because even if you know the story of Yakuza 1, all the scenes with Majima in this movie are so unpredictable, yet they're all excellent! The Majima encounters are so random and insane that in a way, it feels like they ended up inspiring the Majima Everywhere mechanic from Kiwami 1. Honestly, if you don't wanna watch the entire 2 hours of the movie, just look for a compilation of the Majima scenes. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a video about it on YouTube. In fact, let's search for it now.
See? There it is!
Also, if there's something else we can give the movie credit for, it's the set design. Not only did they film it in Kabukicho, the real location Kamurocho is based on, but they also made sure that all the branding in the movie is super consistent with that of the games. After just recently having played through both Zero and the Kiwami titles back to back, I really found myself appreciating just how much effort and detail they put into bringing Kamurocho to life. From small things like seeing the Konbini chain Popo in the background, to more in-your-face references, like when Kiryu uses a stamina and spark to heal from his wounds and beat Nishiki. It's treated like Popeye eating spinach and getting a power-up, and I just can't help but love that. Though, one big missed opportunity is that they barely used any music from the games. No Funk Goes On, no For Whose Sake, no Receive You, nothing! Instead, there's just these generic guitar riffs and fight scenes that fail to live up to the musical standard that this series is set. It was cool that they reused some of the vocal themes that Crazy Ken Band provided for Yakuza 2, but the problem is they used them for the most random and unfitting scenes ever. Black Scar Blues, one of my favorite songs in the entire series by the way, is wasted on a scene of Kiryu and Haruka just walking around, and the ending theme, December 17th, doesn't fit anymore because they changed the movie to take place during summer instead of around Christmas. How could they do that? The one exception to this, though, is Ambassador of Yokohama, which plays during a scene where Majima and his clan are out causing trouble. Which, again, just goes to show he's consistently the best part of the film.
Other things we have to point out are the absence of many characters. There's no Chinese Mafia, no Shimano, no Shinji, no Reina. The florist is kinda there, except that he's not called the florist, and now he's very thin, and they made him a huge masochist. Actually, he kinda looks like a prototype Mr. Libido from Yakuza 0. But hey, at least the Shiba Inu is still there, and those scenes were cute. Do you know which absence we found extremely disappointing? This guy.
Kill this dumb motherfucker!
The Yakuza Live-Action Movie is weird because it lasts almost 2 hours. That's more than your average video game adaptation. But the problem is, it doesn't know how to use the time properly because it wastes so much time on these boring new characters that don't add anything new or interesting to the Yakuza 1 story. Except for the comedic robbers. Those can stay. So when you get to the actual plot about the 10 billion yen, finding Haruka's mother, or Kiryu spending
10 years in the joint.
it is all extremely rushed, all over the place, and it lacks any emotional weight. I'll repeat what I said earlier, but if you want to watch the only worthwhile scenes from this movie, just watch the Majima highlights. It is no overreaction when we say they're peak. But if you wanna watch the entire movie, do so while you're drunk, or maybe high. Or both. But hey, that's your decision. Being sober is also an option, but it might not be as fun.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you're trying to watch a consistently excellent adaptation from a popular Sega property, then you should watch the Sonic OVA! Yeah!